Today on Sugar Spun Run, we'll be making Millionaire's shortbread. Hey Sugar Spun bakers, Sam here, and today I am excited to be sharing another carefully tested, well-researched, and perfected recipe. These Millionaire shortbreads are named so because they are super rich and decadent. They're an old favorite from the blog, and a lot of you have requested I make a video from them. This recipe is several years old, probably 5 or more, so it's about time it gets a video. Let's go ahead and get started by preheating our oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So the first thing you need is a large mixing bowl, and in this we are going to combine 2 sticks or 1 cup of softened unsalted butter. You don't want your butter to be too soft because we're making a shortbread. If the butter is melty or a little bit oily, it can make our shortbread crust a little bit difficult to work with. So I like my butter to still have a little bit of chill to it. Now along with the butter, we'll add 1/3 cup of granulated sugar. And because I want to make my shortbread crust a little bit extra decadent, I'm also going to be using 1/3 cup of firmly packed light brown sugar. Now we'll cream together the butter and the sugar until everything is creamy and well combined. All right, the next thing we need is an egg yolk. We're just going to be using the egg yolk in today's recipe. So I'll just go ahead and crack this, just use my dish from the sugar. Easiest way to separate an egg yolk from an egg white is just pass that yolk back and forth between the shell halves. You can save that white for another recipe if you'd like. I'm gonna take off that little protein that's hanging on there. And we'll just toss the yolk in there with the butter and the sugar. Along with that yolk, we are going to add 3/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract. I know some of you are going to say shortbread doesn't use vanilla extract, but this is a really rich shortbread. We're also going to be adding 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And now we'll stir everything together until it's well combined. Okay, the last thing we need today is our flour. This is all-purpose flour. You'll need 2 1/4 cups, and we are going to gradually add this into our butter mixture. Now, one thing to keep in mind is we're going to need to spread this very sticky dough into a 13×9 pan. To help make this process a little bit easier, I'm going to advise you to not overbeat your mixture. It's okay if it's a little bit dry and crumbly. If you make it too well combined, it's gonna be sticky. It'll still work, but it's just gonna be more of a pain for you to spread it. So let me add about half of it. Stir this in, and then just before all of that flour is combined, I'm going to add the rest of it. Stir this in as well. So you can see it's really dry right now. I want to get it to come together a little bit more, but I don't want it to be clumping together or forming a ball. Okay, let's take a look at this. I want to make sure I don't have any clumps of flour, so there's a little bit more flour than I like to see. So I'm just scraping the sides and bottom. I'm going to stir this a little bit more, not too much. Just gonna work it together with my spatula. I don't need to use the electric mixer. This is what I like to see. Still a little bit dry. Wouldn't be great if we were making cookie dough, but it's perfect for the shortbread. Okay, let's grab our baking pan. I'm going to be using a metal 13×9 baking pan. As you can see, I have lined mine with parchment. This is not absolutely essential, but I love to line mine with parchment because when I go to cut the bars, I can very easily remove them from the pan and cut them nicely. It does make spreading the dough a little bit more difficult though. All right, let's pour this into the pan. All right, now I'm just going to start by taking a spoon and using that to sort of flatten this dough, evenly distributing it. So I have that mostly distributed, and then one trick that I like to do is take another piece of parchment paper or a piece of wax paper and lay this on top. And now you can use your hands and or the back of a spoon to flatten this in tightly. You want to have a nice, compact, even layer. And as I said, this is so much easier if your dough is a little bit crumbly still. If you have gone a little further than this and your dough is clinging together, it's doable, it's just a little bit more work. And I know it's doable because I've gotten my dough to that point before and I'm not wasting the ingredients. We're still gonna use it. I'm just gonna grab my measuring cup to make it nice and even. You don't have to be this particular, but I'm hoping to get some pictures of these later, so having this layer super nice and even just helps me a little bit. Okay, let's take a look. The wax paper should come off very nicely. I'm gonna use my spoon just to tidy up a bit of the edge here. Not critical, I'm just a little bit of a perfectionist. And we'll just take this over to our preheated oven where we're going to bake it in the center rack for about 20 to 25 minutes. What we are looking for is the edges to just be beginning to turn a light golden brown color. All right, while our crust is baking, we can go ahead and prepare our caramel layer, which is also my favorite layer of Millionaire shortbread. Now, the first thing you're going to need is two 14-ounce cans of sweetened condensed milk. Now, I love using condensed milk for this recipe instead of making caramel the more traditional way because it just makes things a little bit easier. It still tastes absolutely delicious and it saves a lot of time. You don't have to cook the caramel nearly as long. Now, along with that, I have 14 tablespoons of unsalted butter. I've cut this into about tablespoon-sized pieces. Just add that in. 1 cup of light brown sugar, firmly packed light brown sugar. 1/3 cup of light corn syrup. Light corn syrup is not the same thing as high fructose corn syrup. I buy the Caro brand, which is made without high fructose corn syrup in case you are concerned about that sort of thing. And I'm also going to add 3/4 teaspoon of salt. Now we're going to go ahead and turn our stovetop heat to medium-low. Now I'll stir everything together, and I'll stir this pretty frequently, mixing everything until the butter is melted and the sugar is dissolved. Now, one thing you do not want to do during this step is turn up your heat. Yeah, that will get the butter melted faster, but it's going to cause the butter to not melt properly, the sugars to not dissolve as they should, which can end up causing your butter to separate. You could end up having a mess on your hands. So it's hard to be patient, but you're going to need to be for this recipe. I like to use a heat-proof spatula when I'm preparing the caramel, and I like to make sure I'm scraping the sides as I go. That way we don't have anything cooking up high to the sides of the pan. All right, now once my butter is melted and my mixture is nice and smooth, I'm going to turn my heat up to medium or medium-low, maybe just a notch below medium, and I'm going to stir this constantly until the mixture comes to a boil. We just want to simmer the caramel, and we're going to cook it until it turns a rich caramel color. This typically takes me about 10 to 15 minutes, but that can vary depending on the exact temperature of your stovetop and your kitchen conditions. Now, for years, I made this caramel layer just by looking at it. A candy thermometer is not absolutely necessary, but some of you have asked for a temperature so you can be precise about your caramel. And if that's you, you will want to take a candy thermometer, fix it to the side of the pot, and you're going to be looking for a temperature of 225 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, so once we've reached temperature, your caramel should look like this. It's sort of pulling away from the sides a bit as I stir. It's a nice deep caramel color. I'm going to immediately remove it from heat. It's a nice thick consistency. Now we're going to stir in 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And your caramel should be nice and thick here. And now we're going to immediately pour this over our shortbread crust. If yours is still a little warm, that's fine. If yours is cool completely, that's fine too. I'm gonna scrape all of that in there. This smells so good. And I'm just gonna smooth that over the shortbread. And we're going to let this cool completely before we add our last layer, which is our chocolate topping. Now, you don't want to add the chocolate layer until the caramel is cooled completely. I've let mine sit for a while. It's nice and cool, not warm to the touch. So let's head over to our stovetop where we're going to make our super simple fudgy chocolate topping. In the small saucepan, we're going to combine 2 cups of chocolate chips. I recommend semi-sweet chocolate chips because this dish is pretty sweet. Milk chocolate might just put you over the edge. We're going to add a 1/2 cup of heavy cream. Now stir this together, and we're just going to cook this over medium-low heat until the chocolate is melted and we have a nice, well-combined mixture. Okay, once your chocolate's melted and nice and smooth, we can take this off the heat. And before I go any further, I want to let it cool down a little bit. I'm going to let it sit for 5 minutes before I pour it over my caramel. All right, after 5 minutes, we can go ahead and pour this evenly over our caramel layer. This is my favorite part. Now go ahead and just smooth this over the surface. Now we don't want to add the salt right away. We want to let this ganache begin to firm up a little bit before we add the salt, otherwise it'll just dissolve and you won't be able to see it. But once it starts to set, we can go ahead and sprinkle generously with some sea salt. Now you do want to let the ganache harden completely before you dig into these bars. And remember how I talked about making this parchment paper sling? This is going to make cutting the bars super easy. You can just pop them right out. Don't try this before the bars have cooled or they're just gonna break in the middle. And let's take a look. Now these are super rich bars, so you're not going to want to cut yourself a super large piece. Can't wait to show you guys what these look like. And take a look at that. You guys are going to love these. Buttery shortbread bottom, rich caramel center, and chocolate topping. Of course, everything topped off with some sea salt. I cannot wait for you guys to try this recipe. If you do try it, please leave me a comment and let me know what you think. I always love hearing from you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. That's so good. It's gonna beep in a second. All right, now we'll just toss our yolk. I knew it. It's like a floaty thing. Or I'm hallucinating. Oops. What a shame.